Chapter 1. The Unwanted Girl. Haley. Carter was 19 when life started breaking her little by little. She lived with her mother, Melissa, and her stepfather, Victor Reed. Her real father had left when she was small. She did not even remember his face. All she had was her mother's soft voice that said, "You are my reason to live." Those words were her only comfort in a house that never felt like home. Victor never wanted her there. He spoke with anger that made her heart tremble. At every meal he found a reason to fight. "She is lazy," he would say. "She does nothing. She should leave." Her mother always answered quietly, "If she goes, I go too." Those words saved Haley again and again. Haley studied in a small college. She worked evenings in a cafe to pay her fees. She cleaned tables, carried trays, smiled at strangers, and returned home to a place where no one smiled back. Many nights, she waited for her mother to come home. And when Melissa entered tired, Haley warmed her food and said, "I missed you today." Melissa would touch her face and whisper, "Stay strong, baby." But they both knew strength had a limit. One night Victor came home drunk. He threw his jacket on the floor and shouted, "Why is she still here?" I said, "I don't want her in my house." Melissa stood in front of Haley and said, "She is my daughter." Don't forget that. He slammed the door and left. Haley hugged her mother and cried. "Mom, why does he hate me?" she asked. Melissa said softly, "Some hearts never learn love." From that night, Haley started working harder. She studied late at night, hoping to build a future away from pain. She dreamed of becoming a nurse and helping people like her mother once helped neighbors. But dreams were fragile things in that house. One morning Melissa fainted while making breakfast. Haley screamed for help. She ran for water, called an ambulance, and held her mother's cold hand until help came. In the hospital, doctors said she needed rest. Victor stood near the door, not worried, only annoyed. "She is sick again," he muttered. Haley wanted to shout, "She's not just sick. She's my mother." But she stayed quiet, afraid of him. Days passed with fear and hope mixing together. Haley missed her classes. She worked double shifts to buy medicines. She sold her books to pay hospital bills. She prayed every night beside her mother's bed. "Please don't leave me," she whispered. Melissa smiled faintly. "I'm proud of you, Haley. Whatever happens, promise me you'll never give up." But some promises are too hard to keep. 2 weeks later, Haley came home from work and found her mother's bed empty. The nurse told her she was gone. The world stopped. She sat on the hospital floor and cried like a child. Victor didn't even come to the funeral. After the burial, Haley returned to the house, her eyes red from crying. Victor waited at the door. "You can't live here anymore," he said coldly. "This house is mine. Your mother is gone. You are nothing now." She tried to speak, but her voice broke. "Please just let me stay for a few days." He threw her small bag on the porch and shouted, "Leave before I call the police." Haley stood in the street, shaking. She had no money, no place, and no family. She whispered to the wind, "Mom, what do I do now?" She looked at the closed door and felt the world closing with it. For a moment she thought of giving up, but her mother's last words came back. "Never give up." She picked up her torn bag and started walking toward nowhere with tears rolling down her face. Every step felt heavy, but her heart whispered one thing: keep going. The night was cold, her body weak, but somewhere deep inside her pain, a quiet hope still lived. That hope would soon meet someone who would change everything. A stranger she hadn't yet seen. Like, subscribe, and share. Read this story and many more on our website, bookishenglish.com. Link in the description. Chapter 2. The Night Everything Broke. Haley walked with slow steps that night, her small bag hanging from her shoulder. She had no place to go. Her phone battery was dead and her pockets were empty. She sat on a bench near a closed store and whispered, "Mom, I'm alone now." Her voice broke. No one answered. The silence felt heavy, but she kept sitting there till her eyes closed from pain and tears. Morning came with nothing new. She asked for work in small shops. Everyone said no. One woman said, "You're too young." Another said, "We already have help." Haley smiled weakly and moved on. She walked miles without food. A night she sat near the bus station and hugged her bag like a child hugs a toy. The next day she found a small cafe. The owner, Mrs. Hill, looked kind. Haley said softly, "Please, I can clean tables or wash dishes." Mrs. Hill looked at her tired face and said, "All right, you can start tomorrow." Those words felt like a small light in a dark room. Haley thanked her again and again. That night she slept behind the cafe kitchen on an old chair, but she felt a little safe. Days turned into weeks. She worked quietly, always polite. Customers liked her smile. She saved every coin, even the small tips. At night she washed her clothes in the cafe sink and waited for them to dry. Before morning, she didn't tell anyone about her past. She lived like a shadow, silent but strong. After 3 weeks she found a small room for rent above a grocery store. The walls were cracked, but it was her space. She cleaned it herself, placed her small plant on the window and named it Hope. That plant became her friend. Each morning she said, "We will grow together." One evening while counting coins she remembered her mother's words, "Never give up." She smiled faintly and whispered, "I'm trying, Mom." But nights were still hard. She often woke up crying, remembering her mother's hand in the hospital. Once she whispered into the dark, "I wish you could see me now." Life began to move slowly, painfully, but forward until one night everything changed again. It was late and Haley was walking home. After closing the cafe, she felt dizzy, but kept going. Her body was weak from work and little food. A car came fast from the corner. She heard the sound before she saw the lights. Then there was pain, sharp, deep, and endless. She fell to the ground, unable to speak. People shouted. Someone ran toward her. She heard a man's voice, calm but full of fear. "Stay with me. Don't close your eyes." She felt his hands hold her head gently. "You'll be fine," he said again and again until everything went black. When Haley opened her eyes again, she smelled medicine. Her body was bandaged. She tried to move, but pain shot through her leg. A soft voice said, "Don't move yet." She turned and saw a young man sitting beside her. He smiled. "I'm Ethan," he said quietly. "You had an accident. I found you on the road and brought you here." Haley blinked, confused. "Why did you help me?" she asked. Ethan looked at her and said, "Because you needed help." His voice was calm and kind. "You were alone. I couldn't leave you there." Tears rolled down her face. No one had said such gentle words to her since her mother died. Ethan stayed until the nurse came. He talked softly, made her laugh once, and said he would visit again tomorrow. Haley nodded but couldn't find words. He left. He turned and said, "You're safe now." Haley closed her eyes and whispered, "Thank you, whoever you are." She didn't know yet that this stranger would soon change her whole world. Join our membership for exclusive English stories. Chapter 3. The Cold Streets. Haley lay still, trying to understand what had happened. Her leg hurt, her hands were shaking, and her head felt heavy. The nurse said softly, "You were lucky, dear. A man brought you here just in time." She looked toward the door and saw Ethan standing there again with a paper bag. He smiled gently. "You like soup?" he asked. She nodded slowly, surprised he came back. He placed the soup on the table and said, "You don't know me, but you're safe now. Eat something. You look tired." She whispered, "Why are you doing this?" He smiled faintly. "Because I can't forget the face of someone who needs help." For the first time in months, Haley felt someone cared. Ethan came every day, sometimes with flowers, sometimes with food, sometimes just to talk. He told her stories about his college days and his mother who had passed away years ago. They both shared the same emptiness inside. Once she said softly, "I don't remember the last time someone waited for me." Ethan looked at her and said, "Then start remembering. From today." After 2 weeks, Haley could walk with help. The nurse told her she could go home soon, but she didn't really have a home. Ethan noticed her worry. "You live alone?" he asked. She nodded. "I rent a small room." "It's fine," he said quietly. "If you ever need help, you can call me." She smiled weakly and said, "Thank you. But I've learned to survive." Ethan looked at her and said, "Sometimes it's okay to stop surviving and start living." When she was discharged, Ethan came to pick her up. He carried her small bag like it was something precious. He helped her walk to a taxi and said, "I'll visit. Take care of yourself." Haley nodded, her eyes wet. "You already did," she said. In the next days, Haley tried to return to work, but the cafe owner told her gently, "You need rest, dear. Come back when you're strong." So she stayed in her room watching time pass slowly. Every sound outside reminded her of loneliness. One evening there was a soft knock on her door. It was Ethan again, holding grocery bags. "I brought some things. Don't say no." She didn't know what to say. He placed the food on the table, helped her sit, and said, "You shouldn't be alone when you're healing." She smiled shyly. "You're too kind," he said. "Maybe I just know what it feels like to have no one." Those words touched her heart. She looked at him quietly, wondering what pain hid behind his calm eyes. They started talking more. Ethan shared small things: his work, his favorite songs, his late mother. Haley shared pieces of her story: her mother's love, her stepfather's cruelty, the night she was thrown out. Ethan listened without pity. He just listened. When she finished, he said, "You've gone through more than most people could bear. You're stronger than you think." She smiled weakly. "Strong doesn't always feel strong," he answered softly. "That's why someone has to remind you." A week later, Ethan surprised her with a small box. Inside was a second-hand phone. "You didn't have one," he said. "Now, if something happens, you can call me." She stared at the phone and whispered, "Nobody ever gave me something just because they cared." He smiled. "Then it's time someone did." Days turned into evenings filled with slow friendship. He took her to small walks when she could manage. Once he stopped near a street musician and said, "Music heals everything." She laughed for the first time in months. "Maybe it's healing me too," she said. But inside, Haley was scared. She didn't want to lose this feeling again. She had lost too much already. She tried to keep a distance, but Ethan never pushed her. He respected her silence and gave her space. That kindness made her heart trust again. One night, she sat near her small plant and whispered, "Mom, maybe you sent him to me." She felt tears in her eyes, but also a small smile. Ethan called that same night. "I just wanted to know if you're okay," he said. "I'm fine," she replied softly. "I just wanted to thank you again." He laughed lightly. "You already did. Remember the day you smiled?" Their friendship was slowly turning into something deeper. Though neither of them said it aloud, he helped her believe in people again. She made him laugh again. Two broken souls had started to fill each other's empty places. Before sleeping, Haley often thought, "A stranger stopped his car one night and saved my life. Maybe that was not an accident." Maybe that was the start of something God planned. And she didn't know it yet. But the man who saved her would soon save her heart too. Like, subscribe and share. Read this story and many more on our website, bookishengalish.com. Link in the description. Chapter 4. The Accident. Haley's days slowly became warmer inside her heart. She woke up each morning thinking of Ethan's kind voice. He checked on her every day, even if it was just a simple message saying, "Did you eat?" Those words felt like care, something she had missed for years. Sometimes she stared at the phone screen and whispered, "Why does he care so much?" Ethan never asked for anything. He was just there. One afternoon he came with lunch and said, "You shouldn't skip meals." She smiled shyly. "You act like you know everything." He laughed softly. "Not everything, but I know you're too strong to admit when you're tired." His words touched her heart. He started helping her with her job search. "You can't stay in that cafe forever," he said. "You deserve better." She looked down. "I don't deserve much." Ethan shook his head. "Don't ever say that again." That night Haley couldn't sleep. She kept hearing his voice saying she deserved more. After a week, Haley found a small part-time job at a bookshop. Ethan came to celebrate with her. He brought 2 cupcakes and said, "One for your new start, one for mine." She laughed for the first time in months. "And what's your new start?" he said quietly. "Maybe learning to care again." Haley didn't understand what he meant. But his eyes said something his words didn't. She looked away, feeling her heart beat faster. She told herself it was nothing. Just kindness, just friendship. But every time he smiled, something inside her healed a little more. One day after work, Ethan came to meet her. They walked slowly down the street. He said, "I don't know why, but you remind me of peace." She laughed softly. "Peace? That's new. Most people see trouble when they see me." Ethan said, "Maybe they never look deep enough." She stopped walking. "Why do you help me so much?" she asked quietly. "You barely know me." Ethan looked at her seriously. "Sometimes we meet people not by plan, but by purpose." She didn't know what to say. His words stayed in her mind for days. Then life took another turn. Haley received a letter from an old lawyer. She opened it slowly. It said her biological father, Daniel Carter, had been searching for her. Her hands shook as she read it. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She whispered, "After all these years." Ethan found her crying when he came to visit. "What happened?" he asked softly. She handed him the letter. He read it carefully and said, "Do you want to meet him?" Haley said, "I don't know. He left us. Why would he come now?" Ethan replied gently, "Maybe he didn't know. Maybe he's trying to fix what was broken." They sat quietly for a long time. Haley said, "I don't even know if I can forgive him." Ethan looked at her and said, "You don't have to forgive today. Just give him a chance to explain." After a few days, Haley agreed to meet the lawyer. Ethan went with her. He sat beside her in the car, calm and protective. She felt safe just being near him. When they reached the office, the lawyer smiled and said, "Your father lives in Seattle. He has been looking for you for years." On the drive back, Haley was silent. Ethan finally said, "You're thinking about him, aren't you?" She nodded. "I don't know what I'll say if I see him." Ethan said softly, "Say what's in your heart. That's enough." She looked at him and said, "You always make things sound simple." He smiled. "That's because life is already hard. Someone has to make it easier." That night, Haley couldn't sleep. She thought about her mother, her stepfather, her lost childhood, and now the father she might see again. But among all those thoughts, one thing stayed clear. Ethan, the man who found her on the road, had now become her strength. The next morning Haley texted Ethan, "I want to go to Seattle." Within a minute he replied, "Then we'll go together." She smiled through tears. She whispered, "Mom, maybe this is the beginning of peace." She didn't know yet that this journey would uncover secrets deeper than she ever imagined and bring her closer to both her father and the man who had changed her life forever. Join our membership for exclusive English stories. Chapter 5: The Stranger's Care. Haley Saturday in silence as the train moved. Ethan was beside her reading a small notebook. She kept looking outside, lost in thoughts. He noticed her eyes full of fear and said softly, "You don't have to do this if it hurts too much." She replied, "No, I need to know the truth. I need to see the man who gave me life." He nodded gently. "Whatever happens, I'll be here." She turned toward him and whispered, "Why are you always here?" He smiled. "Because someone once stayed with me when I had no one." The journey was long, but Ethan made her laugh to keep her calm. He told her about small mistakes he made in college, how he failed a driving test twice, and how he learned to cook eggs only last year. She smiled again and said, "You're strange." He laughed. "I take that as a compliment." When they reached Seattle, Haley's hands were cold. Ethan said, "We'll go tomorrow morning. You need rest." She nodded quietly. That night she didn't sleep. She stared at the ceiling and thought about her mother's voice. "What if he doesn't want me?" she whispered to herself. The next morning she stood outside a small charity office. A man with gray hair was helping some kids inside. The lawyer had said his name, Daniel Carter. Her heart pounded. She whispered, "That's him," Ethan said gently. "Take your time. I'll wait right here." Haley walked inside slowly. The man turned. Their eyes met. He froze for a second, then whispered, "Haley." She couldn't speak. He walked closer and said again, "Haley Carter?" She nodded, tears falling. He held her hands, his own shaking. "I looked for you everywhere," he said, his voice breaking. "Your mother never told me where she went. I never knew you were born." Haley cried like a child. "You left us," she said through tears. "Mom suffered so much." Daniel covered his face and whispered, "I didn't leave. I was forced to. Her parents hated me. I was poor and they took her away before I could find her again." He wiped his eyes. "I tried to come back, but by then she was gone." They talked for hours, crying and remembering Melissa. Daniel showed her old letters he had written but never sent. Haley read them, one by one, her tears falling on the paper. Ethan waited outside quietly, giving her space. When she came out, her eyes were red but peaceful. Ethan stood and asked softly, "You okay?" She nodded. "He didn't leave us. He was pushed away. Mom didn't tell me, because she wanted to protect me," Ethan said. "Now you know the truth." She whispered, "Yes, and I don't hate him anymore." Daniel came out and saw Ethan. He shook his hand. "You brought my daughter back to me." "I'll never forget that." Ethan smiled and said she found her way. "I just walked beside her." Daniel invited them both for dinner. That evening, Haley watched her father laugh for the first time. For years she had imagined that face with anger, but now she saw kindness. He told stories from the past about her mother's laughter, about how strong she was. Haley listened quietly, her heart finally at peace. After dinner, Daniel said to Ethan, "You're a good man. Stay in her life. She needs someone like you." Haley blushed. Ethan just smiled and said, "She's stronger than she looks." When they left, Haley said softly, "Thank you for coming with me." He looked at her and said, "I promised I'd be here always." She stopped walking. "You keep saying always," she said. "Do you mean it?" He looked into her eyes and said, "Yes, I mean it." For the first time she felt her heart Open completely. She didn't say anything more, but inside, she whispered, maybe love doesn't arrive with fireworks. Maybe it comes quietly in the shape of a stranger who never leaves. Later that night, Haley looked at her phone and saw a message from her father. Sleep well, my daughter. She smiled and sent back, good night, Dad. Her heart finally felt full. She looked at the small plant she carried in her bag all the way from home. It had grown a new leaf. She whispered, hope. We made it. Outside the world was the same, but inside her heart everything had changed. The girl who once walked the streets alone had now found both a father and a man who cared deeply. She lay down, closed her eyes, and whispered, Mom, I'm not alone anymore. Like, subscribe, and share. Read this story and many more on our website, bookishengalish.com. Link in the description. Chapter 6. The Secret Past. Haley's days began to feel peaceful for the first time. She met her father every morning, shared breakfast with him, and listened to stories about her mother. Daniel told her about the first day he met Melissa, how she laughed at his broken car and how they fell in love when they were young and poor. Every story made Haley's eyes wet. I wish I could remember her that way, she said softly. Daniel smiled. She lives in you, Haley. Every good thing you do keeps her alive. Ethan often visited them. He and Daniel spoke easily. One evening Daniel said, You remind me of myself when I was young. Ethan smiled shyly. I'm not sure that's a good thing. Daniel laughed for the first time in years. It is, he said. You both have the same heart, strong but gentle. Haley watched them talk, and for a moment, she felt like life had given her back a family she thought she had lost forever. A few weeks later, Daniel invited Ethan and Haley to his office. There's something I need to tell you both, he said. He showed them an old photo. It was of him standing with another man. Daniel's eyes softened. That man was my best friend once. His name was Richard Miles. Ethan looked shocked. Miles? That's my father's name. Daniel nodded. Slowly. Yes, that's what I feared. Ethan, your father and I were like brothers. We built everything together. But we lost contact after Melissa left. Haley's heart skipped. Wait, are you saying you know his family? Daniel said. Yes. And if I'm right, your adoptive father. And I share more past than you both realize. Ethan's hands trembled. He never told me about you, he said quietly. He just said he helped a friend long ago who disappeared. Daniel sighed. That friend was me. For a while no one spoke. The room was filled with quiet surprise. Haley finally said, So our lives were always connected even before we met. Ethan looked at her gently and said, Maybe fate doesn't make mistakes. In the following days the truth became clearer. Ethan's adoptive father, Mr. Miles, had secretly supported Daniel after he lost everything. When Daniel rebuilt his life, he never found the courage to face his old friend. Now, years later, their children had unknowingly brought them back together. Daniel decided to visit Mr. Miles. Haley and Ethan went with him. When Mr. Miles saw Daniel, he stood silently for a long time, then hugged him. I thought I lost you forever, he said. Daniel smiled. You didn't. Life just took the long road. The reunion was emotional. Mr. Miles looked at Haley and said, You look just like your mother. She was kind. Haley's eyes filled with tears. You knew her? Mr. Miles nodded. We all knew each other once. Before time separated us, Ethan touched her shoulder gently and she smiled through her tears. That evening, Daniel and Mr. Miles talked about the past, their mistakes, and how fate had brought their families together again. Ethan and Haley sat outside, quiet but full of emotion. Feels strange, she said. Your father helped mine and now you helped me, Ethan said softly. Maybe it was meant to come full circle. Haley looked at him for a long moment. Ethan, do you ever regret stopping that Night helping me. He shook his head. Never. That night. Gave my life a reason again. She smiled. You don't talk like other men. He smiled. Back. Maybe I just mean what I say. As days passed, Daniel started recovering from years of loneliness. He found joy in small things. Cooking. Breakfast, laughing with Ethan, watching his daughter smile again. One afternoon, he told her, promise me you won't lose yourself again for anyone. You have a heart that can heal others, but protect it too. Haley hugged him tightly. I promise, Dad. But peace never stays long. One evening a letter arrived at Daniel's house. It was from Victor Reed, Haley's stepfather. The letter was short and cruel. Said, you owe me for raising her. Pay me or I'll come for what I deserve. Daniel's face turned pale. Ethan read it and clenched his fists. He won't touch you again, he said firmly. Haley's hands shook. He just won't stop ruining my life. Ethan said, not this time. You have people now. Daniel wanted to go to the police, but Haley begged, don't. He'll only get angrier. Let's handle this quietly, Ethan promised. You're not alone anymore. That night she sat on the porch beside Ethan and said, every time I think my life is calm, the past comes back to test me. He said softly, then we'll face it together. She looked at him and whispered, why do you care so much? He smiled sadly, because you taught me how to care. Again. Her heart trembled. She wanted to tell him she felt the same, but she stayed quiet. Love was growing silently between them, deeper than words, stronger than fear. Haley didn't know what the next day would bring, but she knew one thing for sure. She was no longer the scared girl who once walked the streets alone. She had a father who loved her and a man who stood beside her like a promise that wouldn't break. Join our membership for exclusive English stories. Chapter 7. The Storm Returns. Haley's peace lasted only a few days. The letter from Victor had reopened wounds she thought were closed forever. She sat with her father and Ethan, her hands shaking. He won't stop, she whispered. Daniel held her hand. He can't hurt you anymore. Not when I'm here. Ethan looked at her with calm strength. If he tries, he'll face me first. Haley tried to smile, but her eyes filled with tears. Why does he hate me so much? Ethan said softly, because you became everything he could never be, strong and kind. They decided to stay careful. Daniel hired a lawyer in case Victor tried anything. But that man was full of anger, and anger never stays quiet. One night while Haley and Ethan were returning from dinner, they saw Victor waiting near her house gate. His eyes were red, his voice full of poison. You think you can forget me? He shouted. You and your rich father owe me for all those years. Haley froze. Ethan stepped forward. You need to leave, he said firmly. Victor laughed. And who are you? Her new master. Ethan didn't move. I'm the man who won't let you touch her again. Daniel came out quickly when he heard the noise. Victor, stop this, he said. You've already done enough damage. But Victor shouted louder. You stole my wife, her money, her daughter's love. And now you want to steal her again with your pity. Haley trembled as those cruel words hit her. Ethan said calmly, you lost them because you never cared for them. Victor moved forward angrily. Before anyone could stop him, he pushed Haley. Ethan caught her before she fell. Daniel called the police at once. Victor tried to run, but Ethan held him firmly until the police arrived. As they took him away, Victor looked back and said, you'll regret this. I'll never forgive you, Haley whispered. You already lost the right to be forgiven. After that night, everything changed. Daniel hugged his daughter and said, it's over now. You can finally breathe, she cried in his arms. I feel like I've been fighting my whole life, she said. And now for the first Time I can rest. Ethan stayed by her side. For days he made sure she smiled again. He didn't talk about what happened. He just made her laugh softly with little jokes. One evening she looked at him and said, "You never get tired of saving me." He smiled. "I don't see it as saving. I see it as standing where I should be." Daniel saw their bond and felt proud. "You remind me of your mother," he told Haley. She had the same courage. She would have liked Ethan. Haley blushed and said, "He reminds me of her, too. The way he cares without asking anything in return." Ethan smiled quietly, his eyes full of emotion. Days passed peacefully. Haley started helping at Daniel's charity office. She worked with young girls who had no homes, telling them her story, giving them hope. When one girl asked, "How did you survive all that?" Haley smiled and said, "Because one stranger decided to care." That evening Daniel invited Ethan for dinner. After they ate he said, "Seriously, Ethan, I've seen how you treat her. I trust you more than anyone. Don't let her walk alone again." Ethan looked at him with respect. "I promise, sir." Haley's eyes filled with tears. "Dad," she whispered, "you don't have to worry anymore." Daniel smiled. "A father always worries, even when everything is fine." After dinner, Ethan and Haley went for a walk. She said softly, "When you found me on the road that night, I never thought my life would change like this." He looked at her. "Maybe life sends us people at the exact time we're breaking," she said. "And what if they leave later?" Ethan replied, "Then they were never meant to stay." "But I'm not leaving." Haley's voice trembled. "Why do you care so much about me?" Ethan said quietly, "Because I saw pain in your eyes the first day I met you. I knew it was the kind that doesn't heal easily, and somehow I wanted to be the reason it healed." She didn't speak. She just looked at him with tears. He reached out, wiped them gently, and said, "You don't have to cry anymore." She whispered, "Then don't ever go away." He smiled. "That's a promise." That night Haley lay awake thinking about the long road that brought her here, from cold streets to warm hearts. She thought of her mother, of her father's strength, of Ethan's kindness. She realized that sometimes strangers become family, and family becomes the reason to live again. She sent Ethan a message before sleeping. "Thank you for being there. Always," he replied. "Always means forever." She smiled through her tears and whispered, "Maybe forever is real after all." Super thanks helps us keep creating. Support if you like this story. Chapter 8. The Stranger Who Became Home. Haley woke up early that morning with peace in her heart. For years she had lived in fear, but now her world was different. Daniel was reading the newspaper and Ethan was making coffee. She smiled and said, "I never thought I'd see this day." Daniel looked up and said, "You earned, sweetheart. You fought every storm and came home." Ethan handed her the cup. "You know," he said softly, "you've changed everything around here. Even your dad laughs more now." Daniel smiled. "That's true." Haley laughed. "Maybe peace is louder than anger." They all laughed together for the first time as a family. In the weeks that followed, life became simple and kind. Daniel opened a small school for poor children. Haley helped him every day, teaching and caring. Ethan came often to volunteer, and each time he arrived her heart beat faster. One evening while leaving the school, Ethan said, "You've built something beautiful here." She looked at him quietly. "It's not just me. You helped me build it." He smiled. "I only helped you see what was already inside you." Daniel watched them from a distance, his eyes full of warmth. That night he sat with Haley and said, "You know, when I was young I lost your mother because I was too scared to speak my heart. Don't make that mistake, Haley." She blushed and said, "Dad." He smiled. "I've seen the way you look at him Some people come into our lives only to heal us. When they do, keep them. The next evening, Ethan came with a small box. He looked nervous. There's something I need to say, he began. Haley felt her heart race. You don't have to, she whispered. I already know. But Ethan continued. No, I want to say it. The day I saw you lying on that road, I thought I was saving your life, but now I know you saved mine. Her eyes filled with tears. Ethan. He knelt down and said, will you let me walk beside you forever? Haley couldn't speak. She nodded, tears falling down her face. Daniel came forward and placed his hand on Ethan's shoulder. Take care of her, he said. She's my heart. Ethan stood and said softly, I will, sir. Always. A few months later, their wedding took place in a quiet garden with close friends and children from the school. Haley wore a simple white dress. Daniel gave her a bracelet that once belonged to her mother. She would have loved this day, he whispered. Haley smiled through tears. I feel like she's here. When Ethan took her hand, he said, you were a stranger once. Now you're my whole world, she replied. And you're the reason I believe in good again. As they walked together, Haley looked up and whispered, Mom, I'm happy now. The sky was clear and she felt a soft wind touch her face like her mother's blessing. Years later, Haley became a nurse just like she once dreamed. Ethan built community centers with Daniel. Together, they helped hundreds of young people who had lost everything just like Haley once had. Every night before sleeping, she looked at Ethan and said, it still feels like a dream. He smiled. It's real because you never stop believing. She held his hand and whispered, the stranger who saved my life became my home. Like, subscribe, and share. Read this story and many more on our website, bookishengilish.com. Link in the description.